Welcome to the Dune Hippie Machine channel for another episode here. Today I am making a video all about my CNC mill and running some parts in it. I've been waiting for the right project to come along and I've got one. And I've been wanting to make a little bit longer, kind of in-depth video for my YouTube page here on exactly how I've got this machine wired up and running in my garage. This shop is at my house. It's a residential space, 30 by 30 shop. And I do have a three-phase CNC machine in here. So we're going to kind of go over my setup. We'll get this thing fired on. And the kind of point of this video is just show a little bit actually more in depth the whole process of making a block of steel into a finished part. So these are our pieces of material. I've already machined the edges. I had to order big material, but I need... These dimensions are 5" by 5". So I threw them all in a vise. I did this yesterday to prep and machined all my edges down. So now I have 5 by 5 perfectly machined pieces. And I've actually already ran 2 of these. I had a customer that needed these snout blocks and I got 2 of them done right away. I got a little bit extra material to run them out. So the program is already all proved out. The tools are already all in there. So I'm not going to go super depth into that stuff in this video. This is a little bit more of like firing my machine up, kind of how I've got it wired, and then going over my CAM software and kind of how I set stuff up in here. So what I will do is we'll show you, here is my computer with my CAD and CAM all on it. I use Fusion 360, and this is a 3D model of the part we're going to be making. So when it's done out of the machine, this is a Dana 44 snout block. Give you a little visual because we got some stuff right here. Snout block used for building a spindle upright like this. If you're new to my channel and you're only watching this video because of the CNC stuff, I build pre-runner trucks, off-road suspension. This truck right here, that's my truck, the C10. And I build these things for people all in-house here with my plasma table, my machine, and my welder. And this is just one of the parts that goes into building one of these trucks. So pretty basic stuff. We're going to end up facing, and actually I can come over here. I'll spin it around. There's a recess for a Dana 44, and then the back side here just has some weight reduction lightning pocket. There's 12 bolts that these are 3/8/16 tapped holes, and then we got some nice chamfers on there. So relatively pretty simple 3-axis machine part. This is all my programming right here. We'll actually turn on my tool paths to kind of show you. This is showing all your reds are where the tool's going to feed in, and then it feeds across, and a green is a retract. All of these little right here, this is all movements. It's just kind of visually showing you what the machine is doing, what your tools are going to look like. And there's 2 ops, so there's a front side and a back side. So that's why you'll see over here I got 2 different programs. If we want, we can even do a little simulation on here, which is pretty cool. You can change the speed on here and speed that thing way up. And that's what it's going to do. That's a 1" high feed going to come in there and rough out that pocket. Hang on, let's get a little better view if we can. So it's roughing out that pocket with a 1" high feed. It's an inserted tool. Now it's coming in obviously and drilling, and then we'll have an end mill come in here and clean up and cut to size, and then we also have a chamfer coming in and doing the chamfers. Now you can see it's actually running the backside simulation. This stuff will give you all sorts of info, how long it's running, all sorts of all that fun stuff. So that is the CAM and CAD portion. That's what we're making in this video. Now the next thing we need to do is actually fire this thing up. All right, this is my panel. It's a 200 amp panel that I installed in my shop, but I'm using it as a sub panel at the moment. Eventually I'd like to get a drop and a new service put out here with 200 amps, but right now I just have 50 amps feeding this box from my house, and just being used for my 220. So I have 220 outlets for my welder, and then I have a 220 hookup with a breaker for my phase converter that's back there. So I have 220 coming from my house off a 50 amp breaker that feeds into this 50 amp breaker here. I already have my air compressor running and my air lines hooked up. So that's the very first thing I do is get my air hooked up. When I'm ready to turn on my machine, I can flip this and you're gonna hear a phase converter fire up. So that hum, big old draw on the, my lights dim a little bit when I do that. But it will fires up that converter in the back. I'm gonna have to talk a little louder. We'll come back here. That there is the converter. So I've got that breaker is feeding power into this box here. There's a junction with all sorts of capacitors and different stuff, but it feeds in the power. The one leg drops down into the converter, and then it comes back up through, and then they all feed out this line here down into the mill. So once that guy is on, this is the machine main power. Big old breaker, we can flip that guy on, and then hold the CNC power button until I hear a click. There it goes. And then we can come around to the front of the mill and get our, I forget what they call these screens where they just have the green text, but it's so old, it's gotta warm up. This machine is a 1990 Fadal VMC 20. It's actually just pretty interesting. When I bought this machine, I didn't know, but to the month and year, this thing was made the same month and year that I was born. So I'm identical age to this machine. But anyways, it is now powered up. So this is kind of the little startup procedure for the Fadal. This is very different and unique to Fadals than any other machine. Fadal's home center is off of 0. So the table is at 0 in X and Y, and the head is at tool change height. It's not actual Z travel height. But that's where this Fadal, I always park it here because these things have what's called a cold start. They do not store their table information on your coordinates. So you have to find these things every time you turn them on. So this is old technology versus new. A lot of new CNC is not like that, but we have an old one because this is what we could afford and get here in my shop. So anyways, rambling, let's get this thing fired up. So we'll get to this main page. Enter next command. It was telling you on that front screen, these tags right here let me know that I'm lined up to 0. You want these things within like 50 thousandths of each other. Let's see, this one's got a bunch of chips on it, so let me clear that. And here's the one for Y, right down in there. And then there's also one for Z back in here. You can barely see it. But all my tags are lined up. So now what I'll do, actually I forgot, I always hit my E-stop. So let's turn the E-stop off. And we're gonna enter a command CS, which stands for cold start. So I'm gonna hit CS and then enter. And as soon as I hit enter, I'll boom to this table. You're gonna see this tag move a tiny bit. There you go, it's moving. It does that in all 3 axes, and it finds its center. It finds itself where it is on its limits and all that stuff. Now the machine is turned on, we've done the cold start, it's found itself. This thing is ready to run. Like I said, I had already loaded all the tools. I've already ran one of these. So the very next thing I would normally do, I like to just be consistent. I always like to set my tools up, get those done first, and then I'll do my part setup. So tools are all in there. We're gonna be using several of these different tools in here. This is our face mill. That's the 1-inch high feed I was talking about, our finish end mill, our drill, chamfers, all that type of stuff. We're gonna use all those tools, but I need to set up a block in the vise. I have 4 blocks to run through 2 different programs. So I have an Op1 program and an Op2. We can just run all 4 blocks through Op1 and then we'll switch over to Op2. What we need to do now is load this block in the vise, pick up the X, Y, and Z coordinates, tell the machine where that block actually is in the location to the machine 0 location, and then we can send the program and start running parts. For this, since I do have a little bit of a, for me, this is a production run, having 4 of them. What I'm actually gonna do is before I locate this, set up a stop in there, so that way I can, after the first one runs, I can just take the block out, grab the second block, load it in there, close the vise down, and hit start. I'm not gonna have to re-pick up and locate all of these. So that's kind of something I'm gonna be setting up now. I'm gonna set up the GoPro to get time lapse and all that, because it's really just a matter of throwing a block in there, And then I use an edge finder. This thing spins, and you bring it onto the edge of your part, and when you do, it breaks. So it spins true, and then when you touch your part, it'll break, and then that's when you know you're on your edge, and you come up and pick the other side. I programmed these parts off of center. So I'm gonna pick up X on both sides, find the center, that's Y actually, Y, and then I'll do X. And with the stop located in there, then the machine will then store that and keep track, and I can just load parts. I'll be able to then, for Op 2, flip the parts, and same thing, they are programmed off the center. We don't got to pick that up again. So let's get this set up, and then we will go over firing up the program. So there I was just setting the part up in the vise. I ended up setting up this stop. So now we have a stop that the blocks can be loaded in. I picked up the X and Y sender of the block and put them in my machine for coordinates. So now we are all ready to run this part. Our part's loaded, the tools are all in there, and we've told the machine where the block is actually in the machine with the coordinates. So now we gotta fire the machine up. This machine is an older machine. I said that earlier, it's from the 90s. It does not have a massive processor to be able to process a lot of code. The way that codes are thousands and thousands of lines that tell the machine what to do. So I have an aftermarket board from CalMotion that is wired up on this Fadal that gives me a USB port right here. So I have an 8 gig flash drive that I'll put in my computer, save my files, and then I can pull them off of this using this aftermarket board. So to show you that, and then I also have it on a switch so I can turn it on and off for power. So let's get this thing fired up. I'll give you a little rundown on how to pull the program up and use this CalMotion board. Come to my screen here that's asking for a command. This board, I have to use the control to be able to talk to it. It comes with this cheat sheet with all these different things to type in. So I'm just going to kind of verbally, to get the board to turn on, it is CD, 10, just like that, and then enter, down to the next line, and now is to actually pull up my program. This program is 999.nc, so I'm going to do dncx, 999.nc plus. That little sign comes up, and now it's telling me waiting because it is now reading this USB stick, and it is waiting for me to hit the cycle start button and tell this thing to move. So let's hit the start button. There we go, spindle is on. The first tool was already out there. And I always like to double check, even though I've ran stuff in here, I always like to double check. So I got my hand on this feed hold. I'm gonna let it come down. There we go. This machine is called slide hold. So now it's called slide hold. This is all my code right here. These end lines. So every 5 digit is a new line, and these are all commands that the machine is reading to then card our part. So let's get our coolant turned on. We'll shut our doors. And I'm gonna hit cycle start on this. And right now it's just coming in to do a 10 thousandths pass skim cut on the top of this block and give us a nice finish. You can see these are still raw on the top and bottom, so we're just gonna skim those. And then yeah, all the tools are gonna run out. This program's, I've had everything going pretty slow right now for feet to speed, so it's gonna run for I don't remember, it's 30 something minutes. So I'm gonna let this one run out, and while this one's running, I'm gonna work on getting my GoPro set up in the machine so we can hopefully do a time lapse on a second one. that cycle just finished, and here is a look at a CNC snout block ready to come out of the vise. If you look, there is no threads in these holes yet. I have to hand tap those in a vise because this machine is not rigid tap capable. Another part of the reason, you know, a bargain for me of being able to buy this thing is it's not the most ideal thing having to hand tap things like that. You want to do everything in the machine, but it's not too crazy bad for what I have. I'm only doing a small run of 4 of them here, so I have one more block to load in there and run on that first side, and then I'll go ahead and flip them over and run them all on the second side, and I'll save you from really any of that. That's the same exact program that you just watched, just minus the drill, and that center hole doesn't go as deep because it's just a lightning pocket. So really is the same thing. But yeah, hope you like getting to see my CNC mill, a little bit of my setup, my power, some of the software, and different stuff I use to run this thing. So it's always super fun for me to get to run this thing. I was a machinist as a full-time job, working 60-ish hours a week for about almost 10 years on third shift. So that's what I did before I ever started this business and doing this YouTube stuff. So that is what most of my background is CNC machining, and yeah, that's kind of where I got my start doing all this stuff, and where I really went down the path of I guess just liking to cut up and weld metal together and make stuff. So thanks for watching. I don't know, nothing else on this episode. If you want to see more CNC content, let me know. If you want to buy some of my products, I do have a website I'm working on. I own DuneHippieMachine.com. You can go check that out. I think I have one of my products up on there right now. But that is something I'm trying to get some merch and get merch listed up on there. I'm going to be going into my 6th year of business next year. And I figure before I end 6 years, I need to get a website going. And here we are. So thanks for watching. I appreciate all of you. We'll catch you next time. Peace.